So I think I mentioned that I wanted to make a video for my grandma, Betty, who passed away in June. And I really don't know what to say because, it hasn't been a while, and even though I wasn't super close to her in life, in terms of how everybody else is close to their grandparent, I was not as close as most are, but I spent a lot of time with her when she passed, so we got pretty close, and I'm blessed to have her as my grandma. So I don't know that this will be the last video, but it will be the first, and it's something that I wrote for her funeral, so I just wanted to share that if that's okay with everybody. So this is in honor of my grandma Betty, and I'm going to read exactly what I sent out and what I read. So, I'm Gabrielle, daughter of Susan and granddaughter of Betty. Since the day I was born, I bore a name that was a nod to my mother, my grandmother, and her grandmother. Lorraine, which to anyone is just a name, but to me it means I carry on not only this woman's love, but also a physical part of who she is. To me, this is an honor and a privilege, as she is/was an amazing person. If you don't mind, I would love to share a fraction of how she's influenced me. Before I was born, I was told my family prayed for me. Due to complications my mother faced in the past, Grandma Betty would tell me how much of a miracle I was to her, my mother, and my family for as long as I can remember. Little did she know that as a young lady, this gave me a big head, which it did. Few times I would ask her why I was told this story so often. She would tell me, babies are a blessing, and we prayed very hard for you. This was such a simple yet beautiful statement that I clung to. My grandma wasn't aware until recently, but this had planted a seed that caused my faith and salvation to be found in Jesus. And I do mean that. Which is the greatest gift one could give another. To me, she was an example of strength, belief, and overcoming. This woman overcame abandonment, abuse, and illness, then turned it into security, kindness, and healing for others. She was a fighter in every sense of the word, and if God would allow her to fight off death, she would be standing next to me. I look to her, even if slightly, for directions and guidance, as we had so much in common as far as the hands that we were dealt. The most vivid moment I remember was just a few weeks ago, at the time it was. It's been, happened, I want to say, in May. I apologize if you can hear that noise. My dog's chewing on a bone. I thought that I might be a mother, so I shared this news. She was so excited, even picking on me despite her state. So let me just preface that with, she was in the hospital with what they call BOOP, which is a form of bacterial pneumonia, and it's nearly impossible to get over. And she had COPD and a lot of breathing issues for anybody that didn't know her. All this laughter quickly came to the most tender moment I have ever shared with my grandmother, as far as my memory can recall. I looked into her beautiful blue eyes, and she asked how I felt. There was no way to lie. I was terrified, so I began to weep. This amazing woman took my hand, smiled, and told me as plain as day, "You will be an amazing mother," and I'll never forget that. The conversation went deeper and much more personal, but this selfless woman continued to pour into me even when she feared she may not be able to see tomorrow. To me, it is breathtaking how someone losing their life could pour into mine so heavily. During this tender moment, she shared one thing that I believe deserves to be spoken. She urged me to share God's love and good news to my friends and family. Generally, this isn't spoken in a memory speech, but per her request, I am doing so because the only true way, beyond a shadow of a doubt, to know where you are going when you die is through Jesus. Just as my sweet grandmother did. No amount of words or stories or pictures could explain this woman to you, but to me she was not only everything you need in a grandmother or a friend, but an example of a woman after God's own heart, giving all she had to those she loved. And I hope these words have done her some justice. I love you, Grandma, and who you strived will live on through who you love dearest. Until God calls me home, it's goodbye for now, but not forever. It's very hard not to cry. I miss my grandma. But I don't know if you can tell I'm a little flushed, just because I didn't want to cry in that was something that I had written at the time, and a lot of people that knew my grandma felt that was a good capture of her, and I hope that it did her justice, just like I said in my speech. And here we are, maybe 3 or 4 months later, and I still miss her, and I think I always will, just because when somebody influences you like that, it's hard not to. And she probably was one of my earliest influences of Jesus and just seeing God's grace. And like I said, she went through so much, and maybe in honor of her as well, I will make another video just explaining everything she's told me, just to document it, because I don't know about y'all, but I love to ask my grandparents things that they've been through, because the things that they've been through mold who you are, and that's just like, the sins of the father will fall to the son, and so that's just how that is, who your grandparents were, who your great-grandparents were, who your parents are, mold who you are, and that's just how that is. That's why it's important to know where Jesus came from. That's, I don't know if you've read through the Bible, through those lengthy genealogies, but it's important, because back in those days, who your parents were, who your grandparents were, was a big part of who you were, and I feel that that's how it is today, or at least how it should be. But this is probably one of the harder things that I've recorded, and it wasn't as passionate as it was when I was looking down on her casket. I don't think anybody recorded that, and I don't really care, because that wasn't, what I just read wasn't for y'all to find entertainment. It wasn't for me to try to get views. It was just to let you know how much of a beautiful person that she was, and if you care about me and what I have to say, then you should know where my influences came from. Of course, the ultimate influence is Jesus, but like I mentioned, spending time with my grandmother as she was passing kind of reignited the fire, and I had been bold before. You can ask some of the people that knew me when I first got saved. I was pretty bold. I would just talk to everybody, but through life experiences, and my husband's very much an introvert, so I've kind of reverted to that, and that's not a bad thing, because you could ask people. I was just very extrovert, so it's nice to kind of have that mix. But I think through my grandma that it's time to start making people, I don't want to say dislike me, but get under people's skin a little bit. And so that's sort of why I've started recording YouTube videos. And hold on, my computer screen just went a little dark, so that way you could see my face when I say goodbye. So I just thank you so much for watching this video in particular. I know that maybe you don't watch all of them, and that's okay. But if you've cared and you've watched this one, or if you've lost a parent, grandparent, or anything, I just want you to know that regardless of where they went, you can either be with them or you can't. In particular, I'm so excited for whenever I pass. I mean, Jesus is going to be the #1 person that I want to see, but I guarantee you that first day that I'm there, if God will allow me, I just want to hug my grandma and just kiss her again and just love on her and tell her how happy I am that I found Jesus. And I really apologize if you can hear my dog, and I thank you so much for watching this video, and I pray that it's at least helped you remember your grandparents, remember where you've came from, and I just pray that you're blessed. And if you have any thing that you want to share, maybe fond memories of anybody or prayer requests, if you have a grandparent that's, older and maybe in these sort of situations, I'd love to pray for you, and I'm sure anybody else that's in a relationship with Jesus would. So thank you so much for watching this video, and it's such an honor that you would watch and care what I have to say. Thank you so much.